And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. It is British and Irish Lions announcement time. The squad is going to be announced in a little over half an hour. At last, we've been waiting for this for months and months and months. So much speculation about whether the tour is going to happen. Where's it going to be? Is it going to be in South Africa? Are there going to be crowds? And all this sort of thing. But at this stage, we're all set for the tour to still continue to happen in South Africa. And that's been confirmed. We'll not be moving or anything like that. So we'll have a South African tour. It is still not confirmed, however, whether we will have fans. SA Rugby are doing whatever they can to try and get fans into stadiums, but I don't think it's going to be very likely. We're looking at... the tour starts in the first week of July. We haven't had any test events. There hasn't been any sort of major announcements and stuff like that. So I don't think it's looking very likely, but you never know. But don't worry, because even if the fans are not allowed back in, we will be making sure that we are taking you as close as we can to the tour. We are now part of all the various mailing lists, stuff like that, and getting back into having contact stuff with SA Rugby. So we'll try and make sure we're at all the press conferences, try and get as close to the games as we can, and trying to make sure that we can make you as close and as part of the tour as possible. So we've gone live quite early, and with the announcement still quite a while away. But I thought it'd be a nice time to just sort of look at sort of what we get, what we're going to expect, and what we're going to, what we think we're going to see in the squad and stuff like that, and see if anybody else has any sort of ideas or any of their sort of comments. Greg was saying, I don't think fans will be allowed. Yeah, I also not particularly optimistic, which is a pity because I had tickets to all seven, all three tests, and to the Bulls game as well. I was planning on going to quite a few games. So let me know in the comments what you think in terms of, we're going to start with the Lions captain. That's going to be the first thing that's going to be announced. That announcement is set for just after 12 o'clock UK time, which will be just after 1 o'clock SA time. And it's all set to be Alan Wynne-Jones. There can be no sort of other way around it. At this stage, it'll be a massive, massive surprise if the captain isn't Alan Wynne-Jones. He has been, it makes sense on so many different levels. First of all, he's been consistently performing for Wales. Doesn't seem to be slowing down. He's got so much experience. The most test-capped player in the world for a nation, for any nation. Has led Wales for a long time and very well. I also think the problem is that I think Owen Farrell probably had quite a decent chance maybe 2 years ago, but especially on the back of the Six Nations, where he was pretty poor, to be honest. Maybe potentially missed his opportunity to try and take the captaincy. Outside shouts are, there's Stuart Hogg. There's always Stuart Hogg. Lots of shouts for Maury Toja, which I don't really back, to be honest. But yeah, so I think we know it's going to be Alan Wynne-Jones. Let me know if what you think, if it should be Alan Wynne-Jones, or if you back somebody else. The captain will be joining in via Zoom apparently on the official announcement, so we will be able to hear whatever they have to say. But I think I'll be very surprised if Gatlin doesn't go Alan Wynne-Jones. First of all, he knows him. He knows exactly what he's going to get as a player, as a leader. And I don't think, leadership-wise, there's no doubt about the leadership of Alan Wynne-Jones. I don't think that's any sort of even coming into the question. The only sort of question is whether he makes the side. Because can you really name a captain which might not be good enough to start every single game, especially those three tests. That's the important thing. So that's probably the biggest sort of question marks around Alan Wynne-Jones, is whether he makes that starting 15, which I think he does. I think, it's probably going to be him and Maury Toja as the two locks. I think that's probably your safe bet. But yeah, whether that is the case, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so if we look at, the last time the Lions were in South Africa, we look back at the time when Morné Steyn kicked that very dramatic 3-pointer, very, very good series, Once again, there's so many sort of similarities between that test and the series now. Obviously the Springboks being world champions, literally 2 years after, same as last time. It's going to be a very interesting series, but I also think the problem is that obviously the Springboks themselves have not played any rugby since the 2019 World Cup final, which is going to be a very big sort of issue and a very big problem. And I think the problem as well is that if you look at a lot of the SA-based sides, with the Rainbow Cup having been called off in terms of that sort of big international Rainbow Cup, that where they're going to go and play sides from Ireland and stuff like that, the big worry is that our players, three more players based in South Africa, playing a high standard of rugby every weekend, and are they going to be up to full fitness? Are your Siya Khaleesi's, your Stephen Kitshoffs, your Dwayne Vermeulens, are these players going to be at their best? I mean, Spoo and Corsi, and even people playing in Japan, Malcolm Marks, Makazula Mapimpi, JC Creel, these sort of players who are playing either in the Rainbow Cup here or in Japan, are they playing at a high standard of rugby? Are they going to be, match fit, test match fit? That is sort of the biggest issue, because playing at provincial franchise level is very, very different to having to play test rugby, and that's where the British and Irish Lions will have the edge. The Lions have all of these players would have been played a full Six Nations and an Autumn Members Cup last year and the Six Nations. And I think if you look at the quality of rugby that was played from end of last year compared to the quality that we saw in the Six Nations now, it's chalk and cheese. And that really does show you how it's all about game time. It's all about playing as much as you can, so that when push comes to shove, you are in the right conditions. And I think that's going to be the biggest obstacle for Jacques Nienaber to try and sort of navigate, is how does he get his players up to that level, because there's going to be no time. It's a 3-match series. You cannot afford to not be good enough at that first game. You lose that first game and suddenly you have to win the next two and all the series is gone. There's no time to sort of get up to speed. You have to be ready from the get-go, which is going to be a very difficult and ask. But before we look at what's going to happen now, I think probably the best thing is to start looking back and to start looking at what happened last time the Lions went on tour, which was in 2017, 2 years before the World Cup, where they went to New Zealand, a brilliant tour. And if you go into the Lions social media and YouTube, for example, some really, really cool clips that really sort of give you an idea. You always you hear the stories about what it's like on a Lions tour and what it means to be a Lions player. But, you go on that social media, and it's probably one of the best documented tours in history. And I think that if you go watch some of those YouTube clips and stuff like that, which really sort of demonstrate just how much sort of history and how much heritage there is to the side. And it's a really cool look at it. And I think if you also watch the All or Nothing All Blacks on Amazon Prime, also some very interesting stuff there on New Zealand's preparation for the Lions tour. It was a draw. They shared the cup in the end, which was, quite unexpected, I think. And I think that the British and Irish Lions, had the opportunity, and they thought, we're going to go there and we're going to try and we're going to try and beat the best team in the world, much like they're going to try and do now. The All Blacks were the reigning World Cup champions, and it was all about, can they beat the reigning World Cup champions? And now they're going to try and do the same thing. But we all remember that 15-15 draw, everything on the line, both sides looking to try and take the tour, and it ended up in a draw, which, it's a draw in rugby is pretty uncommon. So when you think of a series which is, so many years in the making, so many matches in the making, so many sort of small battles, and after all of that, it still ended up being a draw. It was quite remarkable, really. It's the only sort of way to put it. But if you look at some of the results, and so they played, their tour last time started on the 3rd of June through to the 8th of July, so a little over 4 weeks, or a little over a month. And the players, they played the New Zealand Provincial Barbarians, where the British and Irish Lions won 13-7. The Blues then beat the British and Irish Lions 22-16 at Eden Park in Auckland. The Crusaders were then beaten by the British and Irish Lions 12-3. Before the Highlanders just beat the Lions 23 points to 12. The Maori All Blacks went down to the Lions 32-10. The Chiefs were probably the most comprehensive victory of the tour for the Lions, was a 34-6 victory over the Chiefs. And then the first test against New Zealand, they went down 30 points to 15. And they then played Hurricanes in the midweek game, which was a 31-31 draw. And the Irish Lions then beat New Zealand 24 points to 21, and then obviously we had the final 15-15 draw. So it was a very interesting tour, and I think that it was and it's very difficult to sort of go with the whole, how can 15 of the best players from 4 nations not be able to beat one test nation? It's really not that simple. It's so much more than, because at the end of the day, yes, it is a combination. Obviously, it's going to be a very good side. and you'd like to think individually they should be able to beat, the sort of individual nations. If the British and Irish Lions were to play England, what would happen? But at the end of the day, the idea of chemistry and the idea of playing together is so important. And that's the biggest challenge with a touring side, like the Lions. And same thing with the Barbarians. That's why when you have World 15s, when you have Barbarians, whilst you might be able to put together a brilliant side on paper, it's whether they can gel on the day. And now you've got these players who play against each other week in, week out on club level. They play against each other on an international level. And now you've got to try and put all that aside, all those years of rivalry, all those years of, potential issues on the pitch, potential collision, stuff like that. And now you've got to try and pack down next to the person that you've been trying to outplay for so many years. So it's very unique. It is very, very unique because I think that there's so much rivalry in the Six Nations between your British and Irish sides that when it now comes to the Lions tour and you have to try and sort of leave that all behind, and suddenly you have to sit there saying, right, we're playing under one sort of brand, one sort of team. Sometimes it really works and sometimes it doesn't. I think it also comes down to the type of players. What is also quite important, and it shouldn't be, is well, it should be. I think it's actually very important, is the idea of players who tour well. It's not just about the best players playing the best rugby on tour. It's supposed to be a very much a learning experience, a very social and fun tour. It's an experience. It's not a side that's ever going to win the World Cup. It's not a side that's going to win lots of trophies. They only tour every now and again. So the whole point is supposed to be a tour. It's supposed to be a very enjoyable tour. It's about these players getting the opportunity to go to a country and spend a long time there, because you sometimes come here for a 3-week tour, 3-test match tour, or you'll go to, you'll play a World Cup in a nation. But it's very rare where you get to come to a country and pretty much sit here for sort of 5 weeks and play different sides. And you play in different parts of the country, usually in front of different crowds, in front of different environments, different conditions. And that's the whole point of a Lions tour. And there's a big social aspect to it. There's a lot of tradition in it. It's a sort of tour where I'll just love to be a fly on the wall, just to be able to be on the bus and be in the changing room and sort of see what it's all about. Whilst a lot of it's all about the rugby, at the end of the day, that's only 6 or 7 games of 80 minutes. There's so much more over and above that. And that's why it's just such a pity that we're going to have such a significant tour, which is such a boost for tourism in South Africa without fans, because we were expecting tens of thousands of fans to descend upon South Africa, and for 5 weeks, host these people from around the world, and seeing the fans invading pubs and suddenly invading like local masses and stuff like that. It's such a cool environment, and I think that's something I would always would like to do, is to be able to be an away fan on a tour and go and genuinely spend time in another country. So that's the biggest thing I think that we're going to miss out on this tour, is that there's lack of away supporters, and seeing 20,000, the sea of red, 20,000 Lions fans in the crowd in South Africa, in and amongst 60,000 South African fans, 80,000 people packed in the stadium from different environments, and sort of seeing that also that unity whilst the strong rivalries between your England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland. Now all of a sudden all we want to do is beat the Springboks as the Lions. So it's very unique. It's very cool. And it's the first sort of tour to South Africa where I'm probably old enough to really sort of enjoy it. I mean, you go back to 2009, being sort of 12, 13 years old, you enjoy the rugby, but you don't really understand the significance. You don't really understand the sort of small nitty-gritty aspects. And that's why I was so excited to have all the tickets and to be able to travel to Cape Town with the other fans and see what's going on. So it's going to be a big blow, but I also think it's going to be quite interesting to see how. So we've got to sort of adapt. How can we make this tour as accessible as possible? And that's where I think we're going. That's sort of our goal, is to try and make sure that whilst you can't be in the stadium, I can't be in the stadium, nobody can be in the stadium, we can still kind of sort of replicate that sort of experience of speaking to different people, engaging with others, watching a game, not just at home like a normal sort of club game, but trying to feel like it's something different. So please do smash like on the video. Please do subscribe if you're new. We've got so many plans for this tour that are going to be really, really exciting. Lots of fan forums, lots of opportunities for fans to come on and give their say. Hopefully, we're going to try our best to try and get some interviews with players. Try our best to get into the press conferences. We really are trying to make a lot of movements towards doing that, so that we can make sure that you get to see as much as you can. So if you want to be part of that, then please do, as I said, please do subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing a reaction immediately after this, a very sort of quick summary of what the squad is. So that'll be up a few minutes after the show and the video here. The actual coverage is finally just starting. So hopefully we're going to be having a captain's announcement in the next sort of 10 minutes, which will be quite cool. And then we are also going to be having a live show tonight, where we've got a panel together, and we're going to discuss the squad and sort of the absentees, who to look out for, the big calls that Warren Gatlin has made, how we think the side's going to sort of start shaping up, and that sort of thing. So we will be live at 7:30 UK time, 8:30 South African Standard Time. So make sure you come and hang out. So with sort of literally minutes to go before the captain's announcement, who do you think is going to be the captain? Please chuck it in the comments over there. Let me know if you, as like everyone thinks, it's going to be Alan Jones. Are there any other candidates? You know, who is going to be the vice captain? What's going to be the midweek show? Let me know what you think in the comments as well. I think it's going to have to be Alan Jones. I don't really see who else you're going to go with. I think that Owen Farrell has missed his chance with his form. I think Stuart Hogg's a decent shot for vice captain. I think he's been terrific for Scotland. And I think that, you know, he brings a lot of passion, a lot of work rate. You know, he's a player who I think is built for this sort of tour. So I think that he's got a bit of an outside shout. A lot of people sort of backing Mario Itoje. I don't really back the Itoje shout. I just think that also I think he's been pretty average during the Six Nations. And I think, you know, to make him captain when he's not been captaining sort of his nation is quite a big call. But as I said, the big question is, will Alan Jones start? You know, your captain has to start this 3 tests. So which players? So I suppose Gatlin almost has to sort of have an idea of what his 15 players will be for the first test. And once that is determined, then he probably gets to sit there and say who is going to be my captain. There's also people sort of say that there's going to be an idea of a tour captain and then the actual team captain. You know, you're going to have Alan Jones, who might be the tour captain, but might not be starting every game, in which case you're going to need someone to captain the side on the day, which is an interesting way of doing things. I think it's a nice way of sort of then combining the experience of somebody that a tourist of Alan Jones' experience, who's been there, done that with the Lions, he's been part of the setup, you know, with sort of then having the added option of not necessarily having to start, not necessarily having to worry about that sort of aspect, and being able to start your 15 best players. It's also all about combinations, and that's why. I mean, I think it's quite a headache to be a Lions coach, because I think that it's quite it's not always as easy as putting your 15 best players. I mean, combinations will always come into it. Do you go with a halfback combination from the same country who play together? Do you go with, you know, outside backs that complement each other? Do you go with, you know, is Warren Gatlin going to try and create a game plan around his 15 best players? Or does he have a game plan and he's now going to select players which he could fit into this game plan? How much does Warren Gatlin rely on players he knows in terms of this Welsh side and all this time that he had with them? What's also going to be very interesting is how many Scottish players are involved, because I think they're a nation which have been overlooked for years because they haven't been particularly good. But this Six Nations, you know, Scotland were really good. And I think Scotland were actually genuine challenges for the Six Nations if you look at it, because whenever they lost, sometimes they lost by a large margin, and, you know, red cards played a part and lots of different sort of small aspects. But I think that that Scotland on a different day with a different bouncer ball could have been Six Nations champions. And seeing that was the case, surely it warrants more Scottish players potentially being in the squad. You know, your 2 big ones that you kind of know will be in the squad are sort of your Stuart Hogg and has to be Hamish Watson, Six Nations player of the season. But then you've got just sort of somebody like Finn Russell. Does Finn Russell make the squad? Quite an exciting, quite a different, very innovative type of player. So it's quite so he's a completely different sort of pick to your Owen Farrell. He's a different pick to a Dan Biggar. He's a very pick from Johnny Sexton. And I think the fly half debate is probably the biggest debate after captain, potentially even a bigger debate, because are they going to go with Owen Farrell, Johnny Sexton, Finn Russell, there's George Ford, and obviously Dan Biggar? And look, I mean, a lot of people are sort of backing Dan Biggar, which I don't think is a bad shout. At the end of the day, they were all very different fly halves, and I think Dan Biggar is probably your safest option in terms of bringing together everything that is all the different aspects of the fly half. I think he's probably sort of a blend of the other fly halves. He brings a little bit of excitement, quite a solid goal kicker, likes to take it to the line, very reliable on defense. He's a very safe option. I think Finn Russell's a very exciting option, and I think that George Ford is someone who thrives in certain environment. But I think, and then you've got Johnny Sexton, who has got so many injury problems, and that's always going to be an issue with him, because can he stay fit? Is he going to be able to last the tour? Because they were saying that during the Six Nations, it's very rare that he actually manages to get through a full 80 minutes. So can he do that for the entire tour? Can you rely on him? Or is he going to break down 40 minutes into the first test and suddenly you have to bring somebody else in who's going to have to do the job? So that's a big calls for Gatlin to make, and we'll sort of hopefully understand his picks, because at the end of the day, he's not going to pick Biggar, Ford, Farrell, Sexton, and Finn Russell. So we'll see by his fly half picks and the squad picks in about 20 minutes just what his sort of thinking is. And then there's a lot of sort of outside calls, and I think that the wings is another one which is going to be quite interesting. You've got the likes of Duan van der Merwe and Louis Rees-Zammit, who are sort of outside chance picks because they are quite new to the international game, haven't played a lot of international rugby. Are they ready? Someone like Louis Rees-Zammit, so young, is he ready for this sort of tournament? I think he is. I think he's a tremendous player, and I think that if you looked at, when you're watching the Six Nations, you see a player who's despite his young age, is very mature in the way he plays, and very exciting. Just like I think Duan van der Merwe is a very exciting player, and I mean, what an opportunity for him if he does get the call up to come to his the country we grew up in and played a lot of rugby here, and take on the world champions in a Lions shirt. So many small things, I suppose, which makes this tour that much more exciting. A couple of interviews here with some ex-players and stuff like that. In theory, we're going to be having the captain joining the coverage in about 4 minutes, I think it is supposed to be. They released a very, very strict schedule about when the captain was going to be announced, when the squad was going to be announced, and stuff like that. But in the meantime, please also make sure you follow us on social media. All the links are in the description. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. We've got a Forever Sports Facebook page, as well as a Forever Rugby page. So we'll have the squads up as soon as they are announced, as well as the captain's pick and stuff like that. And throughout the tournament, we're going to be, or series, we're going to be having lots of sort of stats posts and all that type of thing. So to sort of aid your viewership and watching of the tour, make sure that you are following them as well on social media, and as well, obviously, make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you get to see all the content that we're going to put out. As we wait to hear who is going to be the 2021 British and Irish Lions captain. Also, Ron Gatlin's second tour as Lions coach, which is not always very usual, and I also think what's quite interesting is the coaching staff. I don't think it's probably the coaching staff, his first pick of coaching staff. And no Farrell, for example, is a big call. And I think also a lot of people are saying that he missed a trick by not including the likes of John Mitchell, who's had South African experience. Because as much it is about playing great rugby and putting 15 players on the field, also you also have to look at your opponent. And that's going to be a very interesting aspect to the squad. Because is Warren Gatlin going to pick a squad to try and counteract the physicality of South Africans? Is he going to go with a really big pack? And maybe go with sort of safer players who are more physical as opposed to maybe sort of more flair players. So those are the sort of the small sort of nuances in picking a Lions squad. But yeah, so as we wait for the captain, please do smash like if you haven't already. Up in the comments, let me know who you're backing in terms of in the squad. If you guys have any sort of, if you have your predicted 15, chuck it in the comments as well. Let me know who's you think is going to be the captain, the 15 players to look out for example. Who are some of the bolters, which is a term used for players who probably weren't expected to be called up, sort of like your sort of roll of the dice players who you think might have an impact, but maybe were not an obvious pick. As I said, I think something like a Reece Zammit, I suppose, is a bolter in many ways. Although having been nominated for Six Nations Player of the season, maybe not so much. But I do think that he's that's such a young player. It would be a huge call to include him. A lot of talk about sort of the front row as well, and players like Sinclair and Australia and somebody like a Joe Marler coming in. Are you going to go with that sort of with players in the Irish front row who really dominated the English front row in that final Six Nations encounter? So, and I think that's a very big aspect of the game that the Lions will need to target, because the Springboks have got a very powerful front row between Frans Malherbe, Steven Kitshoff, and then off the bench the likes of Vincent Clark. If Trevor is fit, no Beeson Tawira, so there is that extra sort of loose head spot. Oxenchair trying to make a big push for that. So at the end of the day, if you don't have front foot ball, you're always going to struggle, and that's going to be sort of the first battle when it comes to the Lions is who's going to be that front row and how they're going to try and counteract the South African pack. Okay, I'm just trying to see what's going on. Also, we're having interviews. Having looked back at some of the 2009 highlights. It was a great side. Yeah. Brian Abana through the middle. Apparently he's going to be joining us in the studio quite soon. In the announcement video. And then hopefully we should he's hearing from the captain itself. Yeah, I was chatting to Brian Abana, who was obviously a massive part of the Springboks victory against the Lions all those years ago. Still the leading try scorer in South African history, although a couple of youngsters who are going to try and try and top him. The good point that Brian Abana makes, for the Lions, if you play your cards right, you can try and make it to 2 tours, maybe even 3 at a really big push if you're the likes of Adam Wynne-Jones, who just never stops playing. But for a South African or any sort of Southern Hemisphere player, you get this chance once. You will only play the Lions once, because it is a tour that happens 12 years apart. So, look, I mean, there will always be a couple of exceptions, but you will have to start playing very early to try and get this experience twice. Francois Steyn could be playing the Lions again in his career, but that's an outside Sean Mornestein, but it's very, very rare that you get to play the British and Irish Lions twice. And I think that's something that Sikiboza Noche actually from the Sharks was talking about, the fact that he's one of the reasons he made the move to the Sharks and stuff is that he needs to get himself back into Springbok contention. And one of the big factors for him is that he says that playing against the Lions is once in a career opportunity, and he wants to make sure that he is part of that. So because I think that's what all these players, and I think that's what's so sad about some of the players who are struggling with injuries, the likes of Archie Snyman, the likes of Andre Pollard, Lua Diaga, a lot of these players who are facing injury layoffs, Warwick Galant, for example, is ruled out. There's just so much sort of desire to make sure that they are back in the famous selection. Alton Yankees has actually left South Africa to go and play in France with a view of trying to ready himself for the British Irish Lions series. Because if Andre Pollard isn't fit, Alton Jantjies is the second choice fly half for South Africa. So he needs to make sure that he's in the condition to be able to face the Lions. And basically, I think that between conversation between him and Rassie Erasmus, pretty much decided that it would be better for him and in the long run for the Springboks to go to France, play top 14, than to continue playing in the Rainbow Cup here, because he needs to be ready. And there's a lot of players who need to be ready. And that's where I talk about the players in Japan. Are they ready? Are they physically at a high enough level to be able to compete with the Lions? Same as the players in here in the Rainbow Cup SA. Is it a high enough level of rugby to be able to get these players fit enough to be ready for this tour? And I think that a lot of these sides, I mean, as a Lions fan, I'm almost quite glad that the Lions are not playing the Lions, because the Lions are really struggling at the moment. I think that it'll be quite, I'm just trying to take on a test side like the Lions would be a huge ask. But it'd be interesting to see teams like the Bulls, for example, can they actually do the impossible and beat Lions? And I think that what's quite interesting about the Bulls, especially if you look at sort of the last couple of weeks, is that they've got a lot of players who've got Springbok experience, but not necessarily a lot of those players are still in the Springbok setup. I think Marco Verstappen is somebody who's looking for a call-up. Marcel Coetzee is somebody who's trying to push for a call-up, when he starts playing for the Bulls. But, Trevor Nyakane will be with the box squad, but somebody like Lizo Oboka and Ruan Nokias, Ulrich Lowe, Stravino Jacobs, Cornel Hendricks, these are all players that will play against the Lions in that Bulls versus Lions game. So it presents massive opportunities for these sort of players to try and stake a claim for a box squad. There's also obviously the Invitational 15, there's the SAA sides as well, which provide a lot of opportunities for youngsters to try and make their mark and try and sort of say, listen, this is test match rugby, this is test level, and I can do it. I can play test match rugby. And if there are then injuries during the actual series, especially I think you look at a position like lock, that's probably a big position in South Africa, which is there's a lot of opportunity with Arceus Name and Anlo Diaga both being big doubts. There's now talks about a call up from Jasper Wiese, who's obviously playing in Europe. There's looking at players like Ruan Nokia in South Africa. I think somebody like JD Schikkeling, Marvin Ori, those players who have been part of the Springbok setup, not in the World Cup squad, but they've been part of the setup. Suddenly, if they play their cards right, they could suddenly be seeing themselves in a squad against the Lions. And you do well against the Lions, and suddenly you're all the way back into that side, and you could be in World Cup plans in 2 years' time. Because after the series, it's all about World Cup 2023, isn't it? Really? I mean, yes, every year we talk about outgoing series, and we talk about, you want to win the Rugby Championship. But, next year is the last calendar year before we're in a World Cup year again. It's already that sort of time. So after the World Cup, it is all going to be very much for the Springboks Irish Lions, and make sure we are ready for that and we take the series. But after the series, the next big thing for the Springboks, the next big thing for Jacques Nienaber is the next World Cup. So you need to make sure as a young player that this is the time to be being called up. Not necessarily right now during the Lions, but at the end of the year, we're going to start seeing a couple of different names. Because is Dwayne Vermeulen going to be available for the next World Cup? Players like that. And if they're not, that's a spot. So who's going to be the next eighth man for South Africa? Who's going to be the next, who's going to be your wings? Who are going to be your centers? Where as a player can you try and squeeze your way into the Springbok squad for the 2023 World Cup? And playing against the Lions for your union is a massive, massive way to make a statement. And imagine having a man of the match performance for the Bulls against the Lions. Obviously Rassie Erasmus is watching. Obviously Jacques Nienaber is watching. Everyone's watching. So that's the time to make a statement. So he's saying sad news for Arceus Snyman. I hope Kumas Reinach is back with Herschel and Faf. Deadly scrummies. Yeah, I mean Kumas Reinach is somebody who's making quite a big push here at the moment. I also think that Herschel Jantjies is struggling a little bit with this form. So he's got quite a point to prove the next couple of weeks if he wants to try and make the bench. I think Faf de Klerk's a given. We all know that's not going to change much. We finally got Warren Gatlin, who is on the screen here, which means I think we are hopefully very, very close to announcing the captain, which was supposed to be announced by now. So Gatlin's busy reflecting about his time with the Lions. Obviously, he's been on a Lions tour to South Africa before. He was the assistant coach in 2009. So he's been there, he's done that. He was the head coach in 2017. So he knows what the Lions are all about. He's talking about the fact that he's also played against the Lions. So despite not being from Britain or Ireland, somebody that knows the Lions setup, he's been involved in lots of different tours. I think that's probably one of the big reasons why they've stuck with him. Obviously, we know he's a class coach, but I think that he's also somebody that understands what it's all about, understands the occasion. I just hope 80% of the Rugby World Cup squad is still around. I've been longing for continuity. I don't think we're going to see too much of a difference in the box squad for the Lions tour. I think that it's going to be the 2018 World Cup squad, the 2019 World Cup squad in terms of who's available, and then after who's not available through injury, you then probably start bringing players up. But I think, you're starting 15, bar Beast Tawira, they should all be available. It's all about injuries. That's what I'm saying. His name and Lua Diaga. Obviously, no Roy Kalant in the squad. But Ches and Colby's looking good. Pimpy should be fit. Damien Delindy's playing some brilliant rugby. Lacanya Am's fit. Villy LaRue, that's another player, that's probably needs to try and make sure he's up to scratch. Andre Pollard's got a bit of a race against time for fitness. Dwayne Vermeulen returns this weekend. The Bulls have announced their lineup. He is actually back for the Bulls this weekend, so that's a big relief, I'm sure, for them and for Rassie Erasmus. But Sia Khaleesi should be available. P.C.F. Toy's just come back from injury. So, Bongi Manambi, Frans Mahova, Trevor Nyakani is also a bit of an injury thing. So, I think as far as they can in terms of players who are fit, it'll be the same squad as what we saw in the World Cup final. After that, in terms of injuries, that's when you have to start bringing it. I think we're going to see a lot of players coming from Europe, especially because I think that there's a little bit of a worry about the standard of the Rainbow Cup and the standard of the rugby being played in South Africa. Because if Rassie Erasmus is doubting and Jacques Nienaber is doubting that the standard of rugby being played here at the moment is good enough or not good enough, they might be more inclined, if it's a flick of a coin between someone who's playing here or somebody who's playing in Europe in the Premiership or playing top 14, they might actually go with somebody from the Premiership because they will believe that they'll be better suited to the standard that's being played. They might be fitter. Gregor saying, will Rassie be watching the announcement or the tour? Rassie Erasmus is going to be very involved in the tour. Whilst not in theory the coach will still, I'm pretty sure from the sounds of it, will still even be pitch side during the tour itself. Still very involved in pretty much everything Rugby South Africa. I have no doubt he's currently watching. Rassie Erasmus, he's probably got about 15... I reckon Rassie Erasmus spends his weekends with about 14 different screens, watching every single match involving any South African around the world. He doesn't miss a minute. If you haven't watched Facing the Sun on Supersport, go and watch and get an understanding for just how much research, just how much work that man puts in. He is unbelievable in terms of the way he analyzes, in terms of the dedication he puts in to make sure that when push comes to shove, he's got that best side. He's got the best side that can tactically outplay another side. So I have no doubt he's currently tuned in and very interested in seeing what he's going to see. Probably going to have a coaches meeting this afternoon about a reaction in terms of how they're playing and what that might mean for the Springboks. Okay, well, that's very interesting. So, Warren Gatlin's actually just confirmed that the squad's being extended to 37. Apparently, there was a 4-hour meeting yesterday, at the end of it, they actually had to add an extra player. So that's a bit of breaking news. I'm willing to bet Jake White will have some role to play in the preparation for World Cup 2023, considering he won us the Cup in France's inclusion back in the S Rugby is a bigger picture kind of tactic. He could very well be. I also think that it's important that the better coaches you have at a franchise level and at a provincial level the better that translates that to the Springboks. Because if you've got a Bull side who are the best side in the Pro 14, Pro 16, or whatever, challenging for European Cup and stuff like that, and these players are rugby smart and know exactly understand the situation, stuff like that, it's much easier for them to make that step up to the Springboks. So, I mean, that's a sort of a brains trust. Saying to Jake, right, in that Bulls setup, I need you to produce me, 3, 4, 5 Springboks a year. And that's what all unions need to do. And that's why it's important that even from a Rusty Rasmus, the SA Director of Rugby point of view, and an SA Rugby point of view, that all the unions have enough resources to make sure that any sort of talent coming through the pipeline is being groomed in the right way and being prepped to play Springbok rugby. Because if they're not, then that's a fault in the pipeline. That's always going to sort of reflect on the national level. Right, can we finally announce the captain, which was supposed to be announced almost 20 minutes ago? There we go. Right, so the captain is shock and horror. It is Alwyn Jones. Alwyn Jones will captain the side. Well, fancy graphics here, but nothing really surprising about it. Right, so yeah, I mean, pretty much the worst kept secret in the world. I mean, it was so sort of inevitable that it was going to be Alwyn Jones. I think that's the right call. I think that he's, we know how experienced he is. And whilst, not the youngest player, somebody that still week in, week out manages to put in a shift. So it's a very safe call, in my opinion. Right, so there we go. Captain for the tour. Okay, so saying, does anyone know if we'll be allowed to go watch the stadium? It's very unlikely. I think that it's too little, too late. If you want to get fans back in stadiums, SA Rugby would have to have test events. They would have to have, all these sort of measures being put in place. And we're already so close to the tour. I think the first game is against the Stormers on the 3rd of July. So it's less than 2 months. And in less than 2 months, you'd have to have all the provisions being put in place. You'd have to do it wouldn't be a full capacity, so you'd have to do pretty much a reshuffle or sort of a lottery type thing to try and see who gets to keep their tickets, who doesn't. Test events, you have to have test events. You'll have to try and see if you can have a Rainbow Cup fixture where you can bring fans in to try and see if it's viable. So I think it's too late for that, which is why I don't think we're going to see any fans. So the big question is, I think it's going to be a question he's going to have to work with the entire thing, is that whilst Alan Jones has been announced as the tour captain, that doesn't necessarily mean he will be the test captain and will start every game. So I suppose it kind of comes down to him to make sure that he's in a position that he's good enough to start in that 15. So we've got those games against the Stormers, Bulls, SAA, Sharks, SA Invitational to try and make that sort of statement. Come on, we're supposed to be last in the squad. Let's get on with it. Right, well, we have our captain for the tour. We'll have the squads hopefully very soon. A 37-man squad. If you're just tuning in, the squad has been amended to actually have an extra player, so we'll have to wait and see. I need to see who that extra player is. It's something that we'll probably discuss on our panel tonight. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Set a reminder at 7:30 UK time, 8:30 South Africa time. We will be live tonight for a panel discussion about the squad. A couple of other rugby writers who are going to be joining me. We're going to be discussing potential starting 15s, what sort of squad means, what the implications are, what the implications are of Adam Jones as captain, and all that sort of thing. So make sure that you do come join us later for that as well. This could be the longest interview in like rugby history, which is sad because I think that if obviously it's a massive moment for Adam Jones, but at the end of the day, we all just want to see the squad. So if they could hurry up, that'd be much appreciated. Right, so Adam Jones reckons he doesn't know the squad. He reckons that no information has been passed to him, so apparently he's going to be seen for the first time. Saying they should have named the squad and then captain last. Yeah, to be honest, if they had named if they had done it that way, I think people would have probably tuned out as soon as they had seen the squad. That's what everybody's waiting for. So talk about drawing it out to the last breath so they can try and get as many people watching as possible. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. I want to see the squad. Let's move, let's move, let's move. Right, well, that finally brings a close to the interview from Elman Jones. He magically disappears, apparently. Someone's having a lot of fun with the effects that they brought in Zoom. Come on, mate. Well, we thought it was going to be time for the squad announcement, but now we need to chat to Adam Hastings and Sam Warburton, who was obviously the captain last tour. You know, not that I don't enjoy listening to some Sam Warburton chat and Adam Hastings. It's almost coming on an hour that the show's been going on. We still haven't had an announcement. So if they could hurry up, it would be pretty swell. Because all we've had so far is lots of interviews. We know that Elman Jones is the captain, but that is literally all we know at the moment. It's quite interesting that we've had now two Welsh captains consecutively, which I mean makes a lot of sense because of the obviously Warren Gatlin spent a lot of time with Wales and stuff like that. But interesting for a side, which I mean, obviously you've always thought about sort of England and even Ireland as sort of being the rugby powerhouses in the British Irish Lions. That Wales, I think, are also going to. I mean, you're going to have to. It's very difficult to try and justify not having a very strong Welsh contingent in the squad, given the fact that they've won the Six Nations again. Won it 2 years ago, won it now. Yeah, nobody cares. You just want to see the squad. Name the squad. And we really don't need to listen about how difficult it is to be the Lions captain because he has to give a lot of interviews. Come now, squad time, squad time. Let's move. Da, 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 da. Well, we predicted it right. We had Adam win up there, so I suppose it's won something. But if they could hurry up and announce the squad, it would be highly appreciated. You know, really. Well, for an announcement video which had a very strict schedule that said very explicitly 12:08 captain's announcement, 12:28 squad announcement, they've absolutely stuck to absolutely none of it. To be fair, they were about 15 minutes late. And it's now gone 10 minutes since we were supposed to have heard the squad, and we're still listening to more interviews. I mean, there's time for interviews, there's time for hype. We all just want the squad. We've been waiting for the squad. Can we just get a move on with it? Talking about Lions DVDs. Come on, people, let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Well, if you still haven't, you've still got plenty of time to put your potential picks in the chat. Because we're going nowhere slowly at the moment. Here we go. Right, here we go. Squad announcement at long last. Here we go, everybody. The moment we've been waiting for. Right, we've got to have some throwback footage to try and get us hyped because we haven't waited enough. Brian O'Driscoll, what a player. Right, and here we go. Talk to me before you announce it. Yeah, we also love your partners, so get along with it. Right, here we go. Going with the backs. Josh Adams. Bundy Aki. That's an interesting call. Dan Bigger. That's about right. Elliot Daly. Gareth Davies. About right. There's Faz. No surprises there. Chris Harris. A big call. There's Henshaw. Yeah, you couldn't ignore him. He's brilliant in the Six Nations. There's Hogg. Conor Murray. Come off. Eddie Price as well. Yeah, there he is. Louis Rees-Zammit. They've gone with him. Finn Russell. Duran van der Merwe as well. Anthony Watson, no surprises there. Liam Williams, also no surprises there. No Johnny Sexton. That's a massive, massive, massive call. We've got Tadek Byrne, Jack Conan. We're going to the forwards. No, they're not slowing down now. Luke Cowan Dickey. Tom Curry, also no surprise there. Xander Ferguson. Yeah, Tilapa Palatar. Not a lot of English players. Had a Furlong. Couldn't leave him out. Jamie George. Ian Henderson. Going to our locks now. Johnny Hill. Obviously Mario Toji, no issues there. Adam Jones, the captain. Wyn Jones. Courtney Laws. Ken Owens. Andrew Porter's a good shot. Sam Simmons. Rory Sutherland, yeah, I can back that. Justin Tipperick, no surprises there. Macabone Polo. This squad is going to create a lot of debate. Actually, quite interesting. Hamish Watson, there he is. Can't leave him out. Can't leave him out. Right, so no Johnny May, no Johnny Sexton. Simmons is a big call. Right, well, we'll have the squad up in a little bit, and then we'll discuss it. But that's some very big calls made there by Warren Gatlin. Yeah, no Billy Vinipola. No Tom Curry. There we go. There's your fight. So the final English, your final British and Irish Lions squad is as follows: Josh Adams, Bundy Aki, Dan Biggar, Elliot Daly, Gareth Davies, Owen Farrell, Chris Harris, Robbie Henshaw, Stuart Hogg, Conor Murray, Eddie Price, Louis Rees-Zammit, Finn Russell, Duran van der Merwe, Anthony Watson, Liam Williams, Tadek Byrne, Jack Conan, Luke Cowan Dickey, Tom Curry, Xander Ferguson, Tilapia Faletau, Tadek Furlong, Jamie George, Ian Henderson, Johnny Hill, Mario Toje, Wyn Jones is captain, Wyn Jones, Courtney Laws, Ken Owens, Andrew Porter, Sam Simmons, Rory Sutherland, Justin Tuperik, Mako Vinipola, and Hamish Watson. Well, there we have it, everybody. After a very long and drawn-out process, we finally have the squad itself, and a very, 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 very interesting announcement. A couple of big players missing. A couple of big interesting players included. I think that having Elliot Daly, there's quite a big call. No, Johnny Sexton is also a huge call. But we'll also talk about more of that in our live show tonight. So I'm gonna have a summary of the squad put up very quickly. So make sure you tune to see that, and then we'll be discussing the squad in depth tonight. We will be live at 7:30 UK time, 8:30 South African time. So make sure you come and hang on. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been the start of our Lions coverage. Definitely not the end. We've got so much more content coming up. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you smash like on the video as well. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you